Good morning. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. This is Barry Bryson, and we're continuing our study of First Peter, and we are in chapter 2. We're going to be reading verses 13 through 17. Now, he's talked to us most recently about the fact that we're special to God. We're God's chosen people as Christians. We are the living stones that build God's temple. And we're also the priesthood inside the temple. And since we are special to God, we have a responsibility to act like we're special to God. We have a responsibility to not be ruled by our physical impulses, because that will destroy us spiritually. And we have the responsibility to demonstrate to everyone who would be accusing us of so many things that that's not who we are, that we are a law-abiding people, that we are a people of compassion, of kindness, of caring, of help. We're people of honesty, so that those who are on the outside, he calls them Gentiles, will know that the accusations that are made about Christians cannot possibly be true. Now, this is going to continue to be applied practically and more narrowly. And he's going to talk to us generally about our responsibility as citizens of the nation in which we find ourselves. And this is true about any nation in which we find ourselves. Verses 13 through 17. Submit yourselves for the Lord's sake to every human institution, whether to a king as the one in authority, or to governors as sent by him for punishment of evildoers and the praise of those who do right. For such is the will of God, that by doing right you may silence the ignorance of foolish men. Act as free men. Do not use your freedom as a covering for evil, but as bondslaves of God. Honor all men. Love the brotherhood. Fear God. Honor the king. These 5 little verses tell us everything we need to know about being a good citizen, whether we find ourselves in a representative democracy, as you and I do here in the United States, or a parliamentary one, or whether we're in a fascist or a communist nation, whether we're being led by a benevolent dictator or a despot. He tells us what it means to be a good citizen. And the default position of a Christian is always, and Paul agrees with this, read Ephesians chapter 5, Colossians chapter 3, is submission. Christians submit. Submit yourselves, therefore, to every human institution. Submission is not obedience. Submission is something else. Obedience is something that happens between parties which are unequal. And submission is something that people who have free will exercise. And that's made clear here in the text. Act as free men, but don't use your freedom as a covering for evil. You use your freedom in order to submit because God tells you to, and you belong to God. So there's no fear of authority. There's no fear of the Romans that's being communicated here. There's no divine right of kings being communicated here. He says, be good citizens because God tells you to be good citizens, whether it's the federal government or the state and local government. Now, this is going to be important because there will be long stretches of time, particularly the period between 149 A.D. Hadrian's rescript and the persecutions that resume in the 260s, when the Roman government is not, for almost 140 years, sponsoring persecution against Christians, but a lot of local governments do. And so he needs to make that clear. And we also have the resonance of this passage with what the Apostle Paul says in Romans chapter 13, reiterating the social contract that God sets out between the governed and their government, that the government exists to establish justice and preserve domestic tranquility, to make sure that the evil are punished and that the innocent are protected from those who are evil. So that's really a neat thing to notice as well. And then I love verse 17 because we have the difference in kind in these relationships. So it begins and ends with the authority, or begins with it ends with the authorities over us, and it begins with the connections that we have with everyone. So it says, honor all men. You're respectful to everybody, but you love the brotherhood. Not that we don't love everyone, but we have a special bond of love with our brothers and sisters in God's family. Fear God, honor the king. You don't fear the king. You don't fear the king. He ultimately has no authority over you. But you respect the king because God tells you to, and because you fear God. Well, thank you so much for joining me for another 5 good minutes. We'll pick up with verse 18 next time.